Yeah.
Okay, Parasha Miketz. So the Parasha begins that it was 2 years later, after the famous dreams of the butler and the baker, and the butler is back on his job and the baker was hung. Paro has a dream 2 years later. Some people say he was dreaming this every night for 2 years, but now he remembered it. 2 years later, and Paro has his famous dream, and nobody knows how to interpret the dreams. There's a famous word from the Bryks. The Bryks says, when Yosef said to the butler, "Remember me to Paro," what was wrong with that? A person has to do what's called hishtadlus. He has to try to improve his situation. So the Bryks answered, "You're right. Had he asked only once, it would have been okay, but he asked twice. Because he repeated it twice, that's why he was punished with 2 extra years." At any rate, just to give a timetable, when Yosef finally does get out of jail, he's 30 years old. He was 17 when the whole thing began. He's 30. So he's been 1 year working for Potiphar, 12 years in jail, is 13. He's not going to see the brothers for another 9 years. 7 years of plenty, 2 years of famine. When the brothers finally come down, his father finally comes down, he's 39. So from 17 till 39 is 22 years, the amount of time Yaakov was away from his father, from Yitzchak. But okay, the problem that they raise, is as follows. The dreams were not that complicated. 7 fat cows, 7 thin cows. 7 sheaves of corn that look healthy, and 7 sheaves of corn that look very malnutrition. So why couldn't they figure that out? The Khartoumim, Paro's advisors, were very, very brilliant, and they knew how to read the stars, and they did a lot of damage with Moshe. They foresaw everything that was happening. So why couldn't they figure this out? Why they come up with 10 countries, 7 countries you'll conquer, 7 countries you'll rebel, 7 daughters you'll be born, 7 daughters will get buried? That means they seem to be very, very perplexed by this complicated dream when it really wasn't all that complicated. Now, Nebuchadnezzar also had dreams. We talk about this. Nebuchadnezzar, he didn't trust his sorcerers. So he said to them, "I had a dream." So they said to him, "Tell us your dream. We'll tell you what it means." So Nebuchadnezzar's response was, "Well, that's easy. Anybody can do that. You have to tell me my dream and also tell me what it means." So they said, "Well, how are we supposed to know what you dreamed?" He says, "Well, if you're good at what you do, you'll do it. And if you fail, I'm going to kill you, in case you needed some incentive, in case you were worried about how you're going to get it done." So Nebuchadnezzar killed half of his astrologers until Daniel stepped in and saved them all by doing exactly what he said, told them the dream and told them what it meant. And some people question why Daniel did that. Daniel should have waited until they were all gone, because eventually they turned on him. They didn't like the competition. But that's a different conversation. That was Daniel during the times of the end of the first Beis HaMikdash, before the whole story of Purim began. So Nebuchadnezzar also had dreams, and he also didn't trust his sorcerers. So he brings down over here, Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin goes through this, and he has a very interesting answer. He says, sorcery can only tell you what will happen. Now, if you were the sorcerers, things were very confusing, because you saw 7 good years 1 minute, and then all of a sudden you didn't see the 7 good years, because Yosef came and took most of the produce of the 7 good years. So if you were a farmer, 1 minute you're thrilled, look at my crops, look at my fields, they're full. And then all of a sudden Yosef comes with his tax collectors, he takes half of it away. So 1 minute they saw 7 good years, and they saw nothing. Then they saw hunger, but it was only 2 years, because Yaakov came down and the hunger stopped. Mm-hmm. But then they saw no hunger, because Yosef fed them, so they weren't hungry. Then they saw 5 years. So the numbers, nothing matched. That's what Rabbi Yeshua Diskin says to Yosef. He had Ruach HaKodesh. He could see not only what the dream meant, what the variables were. So he could advise Paro, do this, do that, I can help you here, I can help you there. That means he saw more than just the future. He saw how the future could be this way, 10 different paths. The master of the universe knows not only what will happen, but he also knows what could have happened. And that's what Yosef saw. What they saw, he says, were dreams that made no sense. Now, it's interesting that when Yosef saw all this, and he mentioned it to Paro, Paro said to Yosef, you know what? I'm going to put you in charge. But not only am I going to put you in charge, I'm going to give you such authority, you're going to be greater than me. Only when I'm on my throne do I outrank you. But in the street, if a person comes over to me and comes over to you, your decision is final. Why? Because Paro knew what we all know. In the United States or anywhere, when a problem comes up, what do? First, you have a committee. The committee spends a few years and a few $1 million to study the problem. Then the committee writes reports. Then if you don't like the report, you question the report, you question the motivation. Or you say, we're not going to send the documents over to the Senate until the Senate tells us how they're going to judge the case. That means nothing happens here. I mean, the House of Representatives impeached Trump, and they go through this whole thing, and what's next? We're not doing nothing. We're not sending it over. We don't like the way the Senate is going to conduct it. Well, didn't you know that before you started the process? So why did you start the process? It just, the whole government is paralyzed, is shut down, not knowing what's right and what's wrong. That means we don't want, just to do something. We want to make sure, guaranteed, that what we did will be successful or not. So Paro said to Yosef, he says, listen, I know the Egyptians. I'm going to send someone down to an Egyptian whose field has 1,000 bushels and say, I'm taking 500 of them. They're going to come at you with pitchforks. They're going to say, you're not taking anything of ours. This is mine. Get out of here. So the only person who can do this is someone as powerful as Paro, that has the whole Egyptian army behind them. You have to be, it's not just anybody. You've got to be not only the government, you've got to be the government. You've got to be more powerful than Pharaoh himself. So Paro understood that if Yosef was going to do what he wanted to do, nobody should be able to say no. Now, they tried to do end runs about it. They would come running to Paro, and they would say to Paro, this guy Yosef, he's crazy. He wants us all to be circumcised. So Paro says, what's the problem? He says, we don't want to do that. He says, well, if he wanted to, he could have you all condemned to death. So that's all he's asking you for. I would do it if I were you. They constantly went to Pharaoh to complain. Yosef is doing this, Yosef is doing that, Yosef is asking this, Yosef is asking that. And Pharaoh's answer was always the same. What are you coming to me? I made him more powerful than me. He's in charge. He's the king. Yeah, I can't do anything. My hands are tied. And as a consequence, Yosef was able to accomplish everything that had to be accomplished. Now, it's interesting. The pasuk, it says that two people in the Torah were called tzaddik. Yosef is called Yosef HaTzaddik. Who is the other person who the Torah refers to as a tzaddik? Noach ish tzaddik. What did they both have in common? They both fed the world. Noach fed the world that was in the ark. That was the world at that time. And Yosef fed the world. When you feed others, you're called a tzaddik. It says in Ashrei, poseach es yodecha, you open up your hands, you satiate, you feed all living things. The next pasuk is tzaddik Hashem b'chol derochav. Hashem is a tzaddik. So the pasuk in Ashrei, David HaMelech teaches us in Tehillim that when you feed the world, when you take care of others, that's tzidkis. When someone says, I want to be a tzaddik, how do I do that? Just take care of people who are less fortunate than you. When you take care of people who are less fortunate to you, you get the title tzaddik. And it is, everybody thinks to be a tzaddik you have to do terrible, hard, difficult things. The answer is no. You just got to take care of those around you. It's not that complicated. It's not rocket science. It's not that complicated. You just got to care about the people around you. In the Torah, it says that when the brothers finally came down to Egypt, and Yosef saw them, and he recognized them, and they didn't recognize him, so it says that he spoke to them tough, but it says, Vayizkar Yosef es hachalomos. He was flushed with memories. I mean, now he sees the brothers for the first time in 22 years. What did he remember? He could have remembered how they punched him, how they grabbed him, how they tore his coat, how they threw him into a pit with scorpions and snakes, how they sold him. There were a lot of very hostile memories he could have had. But that's not what the memories he had. He didn't allow himself to be caught up with revenge. He remembered his dreams. He says, I remember them bowing to me. I remember that I was royalty. And I see myself that I'm not the same person that I was. You know, when he was 17, he was a kid. He was a child. Now he's a little bit more of a mature adult. He's 39 years old. He's almost 40. So he sees the world very, very different. So Rav Schwab says that he could have gotten caught up in petty, vengeance. But instead, he kept this focus. I remember my dreams. Let me just stay the line. Let me not go crazy. Let me just stay the line. Now, it's interesting that he called them spies. And he says, you've come to see ervas ha'oretz, the nakedness of the country. So some opinions, Rashi and some say that when the brothers came into Egypt, they came in through different gates. This way they could scour the city to find Yosef because they knew Yosef was down there. Not sure why they were looking for him, because what was the plan? Was the plan to save him, redeem him? Were they going to take him back to their father? I mean, there was never a plan. It doesn't look like there was a plan. Yosef, one of the Meforshim say, very interesting, he says, Yosef was a good-looking kid. They describe him as a pretty boy. Egypt, there was a place for these pretty boys. It was like the red light district, So they went down to that district where they had prostitution and everything else. And a lot of spies used to go down there because these prostitutes served government officials. So they always heard secrets of what was going on. So that was a place where spies hung out. So Yosef says, I know where you've been. You've been to the ervas ha'oretz. Ervas means the unbecoming area of the country. It means you've been to the red light district. I know what you're doing. You're trying to get secrets. What they were really doing was they were looking for him. So he accused them of being spies, but he accused them in a way that embarrassed them. And of course, right away, no, that's not us. No, we're not into that. No, we're not going to do any of that. And that pretty much stopped all their questions and their inquiries and their searching. They put a stop to it because Joseph was watching them and he accused them of being spies. They even drank wine when they never drank wine until then. They stopped drinking wine. So they were very, very cautious after that. But there's another part over here which is also very interesting in maybe what's going on today. It says that when the hunger broke out and everybody was going down to Egypt, so look what Yaakov says. Vayar Yaakov saw ki yeshev b'Mitzrayim, there was food in Egypt. Vayomer Yaakov levanav, Yaakov said to his sons, Lama tisra'u, why do you attract attention? So what does Rashi say? Rashi says that Yaakov had food. He had anticipated the hunger, and he had supplies, and he had storehouses. He had food. But if everybody is starving, and everybody's going down to Egypt, and you walk around, with a full stomach and snacks, and you're telling everybody, look at us, we're good. What are you going to generate? Jealousy. He says, you're going to create jealousy between the Bnei Esav and the Bnei Ishmael. And you know what jealousy causes? Anti-Semitism. And anti-Semitism causes fights and problems. He says, Jersey City. We can sit here and debate Jersey City. But the fact remains that a lot of the people that were interviewed were resentful. Now, why were they resentful? Because a lot of Jews are coming into Jersey City, they're buying properties for $50,000 and they're building $500,000 homes on it. You know, when the Jews were in Egypt, they were in Goshen, they were out of sight. Nobody bothered them. When they started to move out of Goshen and started to go all over the country, all of a sudden, people noticed, and they weren't happy. So, you know, it's not an excuse, and it doesn't justify, you know, what is happening. But Yaakov's made it very clear to his sons. He says, when everybody's hungry, be hungry. When everybody's going down to Egypt to buy food, go down to Egypt to buy food. Don't be different. Don't stand out. Don't attract attention. Because when you stand out and you attract attention, nothing good comes from that. Only trouble comes from it. So it's very interesting how those things played out. Now, when the brothers come back, and we'll talk a little bit about this next week. When the brothers come back, Shimon is not there. And so far that makes sense, because, as I'll tell you next week, Shimon was the main collaborator against Yosef. It was Shimon and Levi, you know, these were the troublemakers. They had it in for Yosef. So when Yosef took Shimon, the brother said, yeah, it makes sense. All of this is happening because of what happened. When Binyamin is taken, that they don't understand at all. You know, that confounded them because Binyamin wasn't involved. They no longer saw God's hand, as they would say. At any rate, when they come back and to Yaakov, Yaakov says to them, why? Vayomer aleim Yaakov Aviv, oh, see, she called them. You guys, you just made my life miserable. Why are you doing this? Yosef is gone. Shimon is now not here. And Binyamin Tichocho, you want to take Binyamin? Olai hoyo kulona, I had enough. Now, the medrash on this is shocking, it's fascinating. Yaakov is the Bechir Avos, he's the best of the three. Avram, Yisro, Yaakov is the best. The medrash says that Hashem says, what? You're complaining? You had enough? I'm busy orchestrating the world that your son Yosef should come back to you and be viceroy, king in Egypt, and that you should be living in the lap of luxury, and things should be great. And I'm doing all these wonderful things behind the scenes, and you know what you're saying? You're so mean. What are you doing? I had enough. I can't take it anymore. It seems a little strange of a comment from a Yaakov Avinu. Moshe said something similar. When Moshe went to Pharaoh the first time on behalf of the Jewish people, and Pharaoh says, really? They have so much free time? I'm not going to give them straw anymore. I'm going to make their life even harder. Moshe comes to Hashem, and Moshe says to Hashem, why did you send me? I was supposed to make things better. I made things 10 times worse. The people before didn't like me or hate me. Now they can't stand me. So why did you send me? So Hashem said to Moshe, trust me, you'll see the Yeshua, the salvation. But because you complained, you're not going to go into Israel. So Moshe paid a price for that.
See what?
You will not go into Israel.
You said Yeshua.
Yeshua. You'll see the Jews saved from Egypt. You'll see them go out of Egypt. You'll see the splitting of the Yam Suf. You'll give them the Torah at Har Sinai. And then that's it. You're not going to see the Beis Hamikdash. You're not going to go further. So, it's very hard. People are bitter, but it's not necessarily the best advice to tell someone to complain to God and say, you're a mean guy, what are you doing? You're really not nice. Not always a good idea, because he may have an answer that you're not going to like back, okay? So, but Yaakov says that. Yaakov says, why did you do all this? I'm so miserable. My life has been going downhill When I thought things couldn't get any worse, they're getting worse. Now, there's a very interesting story. With Reb Chaim Kanievsky. There was a girl who was 23 years old by the time she got married. And she was a mitzuyena. She was a wonderful girl. She was pretty, she was talented, came from a wonderful family. She really had everything. She was picky. She waited for the right guy to come her way. And everybody talked about this girl as being the God's gift to anybody, like the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect everything. And she finally got married, and she was married for 2 or 3 months when her husband died. What made matters even worse is the husband had a bunch of sisters but one brother, and the brother was only 4 years old. And because they just got married, and she died without children, he has to do chalitza. And he cannot do chalitza until he turns 13, and he's only 4. So 9 years. I mean, she's 23, until she's 32, she can't even go out. She can't go out, she can't date, she can't marry, can't nothing. Until she's 32. And then she can start again the whole cycle. So she couldn't understand this. I come from a wonderful family, I'm a wonderful girl. No matter, I'm like a diamond. Not even a diamond in the rough. I'm a diamond. Everywhere you look at me, I shine. So why would God give me a husband that would die 3 months later, and now who has a brother who's only 4 years old? I mean, it just doesn't add up. So, out of frustration, she went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Reb Chaim Kanievsky said to her, by right, you should not have gotten married before you were 33.
Before you?
33. You should not have been married. But what would have happened? Imagine at 23, you're dating and you're not going to get married till you're 33. People are going to start talking. Why is this wonderful girl not married? Something must be wrong. Maybe she's mentally ill. They'll speak lashon hara about her. Maybe there's a skeleton in the family. And then your brothers and sisters behind you, how are they going to get married if you're not married? And imagine all those dates you're going to go on, you're going to be wasting your time. And maybe there'll be guys that you like, and you'll have your heart broken a bunch of times. So Hashem says, why should I torture this girl? According to my calendar, she's not going to get married till she's 33 plus. So I got to do something. So he sent you a husband who lived for a short time. Now you have to wait for chalitza. No one's talking. Miriam, why isn't Miriam married? She's waiting for chalitza. The boy is only 7. She has to wait another 6 years. So no one is talking. All your brothers and sisters will get married. Life will go on. Your family's reputation will not be in suspect. No one's going to talk about you. No one's going to talk about you behind my back. If anything, they're going to have rachamim on you. They're going to have compassion. He says, you have no idea. What you think is a horrible curse. Why did God do this to me? He really did you the biggest blessing in the world.
After Chalisa, she can marry anybody or only him?
Anybody. We don't do Yibum, so that's Chalitza. Once Chalitza frees her from the family obligation. So you remember in the olden days, women just didn't get married so easily, so it was the brother who took over responsibility.
What if he wouldn't have brother?
Then she could get married.
Right away.
Right away. Chalitza is a halacha that when the husband dies, any brother who's in the world, if the mother has a brother, a son, a year later, doesn't count.
Oh, before.
Has to be in the world.
Before marriage.
Right, before marriage, right. Brother has to be there.
But why should he have to wait until 13 of the...
Because he can't do chalitza until he's an adult. He has to be bar mitzvah.
Oh, he's supposed to give her permission.
He has to take off the shoe. There's a whole... She has
or
to
marry himself.
Right. So, he's stuck. He's a child.
They're still doing it now, also counting.
Sure.
The rule is now also.
Also, when I was on the base in Tel Aviv, we used to do about 3 or 4 a month. You have to understand why. In Israel, a lot of young marrieds who don't have children die in car accidents. And what happens is the wife comes to the Beit Din to have her status changed from married to widow, almanah. So we asked, do you have any children? No children. Do you have any, did your husband have any brothers? Sure. So we have to do chalitza. So between the wars, just think about, I was there right after the Yom Kippur War. What are the ages of soldiers? 18, 19, 20, 21. Many newly married. Many who died in the war and left over wives without children, who had brothers. So we were doing chalitzas 3, 4, 5, 6 a month, every month. I must have done 50, 60 chalitzas.
But if some of them don't follow this rule, if they want to marry and get married, what gonna be?
You wouldn't, what would you, marry a person without a get? No, you just can't. That's the Torah, the halacha. So they're stuck. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky tried to explain to her that what you think is a horrible injustice is a bracha. There's another story they give with Reb Chaim Kanievsky. There was an Israeli soldier who became a Baal Tshuva. He wasn't religious for the longest time, and he became religious. He attended a yeshiva in Israel called Nesivei Olam, and the Rosh Yeshiva there was Rav Brook. And he had just gotten religious over the summer, and he joined the yeshiva in September, and a few weeks later, he was diagnosed with a very aggressive cancer, and he died about a month or two later. So the family wanted Rabbi Brook to give the eulogy at the funeral. And Rabbi Brook didn't know what could I possibly say. Here's a guy who wasn't religious. Life was great. Comes religious, and he drops dead. Like, what am I supposed to say? You became religious and God killed you. I mean, what am I supposed to say? So he went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky said to him, what you should say at the eulogy is that by right, he should have died 7 years ago. But Hashem waited and gave him an extra 7 years so he should become religious. Now that he became religious, it was his time to go. So Rabbi Brook walked out of there and he says, I can't say that. We're not going to get up there in front of hundreds of people and say that this fellow who died at 28 should have really died when he was 22, or 21. I mean, that's crazy. But he asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Reb Chaim Kanievsky told him that's what he should do. So at the funeral, he spoke about Reb Chaim Kanievsky, how people go to him, and he has insights that we don't have. And after he gave a whole introduction about this great man, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, he said, I consulted him what to do. And this is what he told me to say, and he said it over. But this way he played it down, because it was not my words, it's his words. Afterwards, the father of the boy comes over and says, boy, that man is very smart. How did he know? So Rabbi Brooks says, how did he know what? He says, 7 years ago, my son was on a mission in Lebanon, a very secret mission. And there were 2 jeeps, and he was in Jeep 1. And right before Jeep 1 left, his commanding officer called him and said, I want you in Jeep 2. He said, no, but my buddies are in Jeep 1. He says, I know, but I need you in Jeep 2. And as they went out, Jeep 1 was hit by mortar, and everybody in Jeep 1 was killed.
And what?
By mortar, and everybody in Jeep 1 was
What is that
killed.
mortar?
Mortar is a
Rocket?
A rocket device, yes. So he said, his father says that, had he been in Jeep 1, he would have died. That was 7 years ago.
So his brother was in the Jeep one?
His friends were in
Okay.
Jeep 1. So he says that the rabbi is right. He should have died 7 years ago. But he didn't. So God obviously gave him an extra 7 years, which he maybe didn't rightfully deserve, in order for him to do teshuvah, which he did. He became religious. And then his time came. So the rabbi was right.
Anyway, he died after 7 years old.
What?
Anyway, he died after 7 years, yeah?
He died from the cancer. But like,
Как Rabbi Kanievsky узнал об этом?
yeah, I
Никто не
mean,
знал.
the way he
Это
understood
муж
it,
даже не знал. А отец потом, когда он сказал...
like he just, like, how did he just, how he understood it and how he said it was, Rav Brook was shocked. Now, I said this last night, I had heard the story, by the way. I had heard the story years ago. But last night when I spoke somewhere, I spoke in the show, some of the people there are Israelis, and they knew the fellow. They knew the story, they knew the fellow, they knew the mission, it was Lebanon, they knew the mission. I remember when it took place, and I remember that Jeep got destroyed, and I remember that a bunch of soldiers were killed. But he was in the Jeep, he was actually in the Jeep. And his commanding officer pulled him out.
With no reason.
No reason, pulled him out. put him in another one, put him in another vehicle. And at the end, so he had an extra 7 years, which is exactly what Reb Chaim Kanievsky said. And then he became a Baal Tshuva, and Hashem says, okay, now it's time to go. He was on borrowed time.
How are you?
I have no idea.
What is
I have no idea. So, but the point that the message is being conveyed is that there are a lot of things that happen in this world that on the surface looks horrible. And we can't figure out what, where, how. And, and then we turn to Hashem and we complain bitterly, but that may not be the right approach.
Sometimes I heard they don't even know how they happen, but like Hashem tells them, and it comes right.
You never know. It says.
Rabbi Kanievsky's still alive?
Yes, he's in Bnei Brak.
He's in Israel?
In Bnei Brak. It says that Paro called Yosef. Paro sent the message to bring Yosef, and they brought him from the pit, from the jail. Then it says Yosef took a haircut, he shaved, and he changed his clothes. And he came to Paro. So the Meforshim, very interesting. Paro demanded, bring this Yosef, I want to see him, after the butler told him the whole story. So the Egyptians who took Yosef out of the pit said to him, we're taking you now to Paro. Yosef says, I can't go like this to Paro. It's not respectful. I've been in jail for 12 years. I need a shave, I need a haircut. I need a bath, I need to change clothes. And Yosef did this on his own. He refused. They wanted to bring him dirty. So Parasha said, okay, thank you, get out of here. You have nothing to do with him. But Yaakov prepared Yosef in Beis Medrash Shem Ve'ever, everything that he learned. The Torah that he learned in Beis Medrash Shem Ve'ever was how to deal with the outside world. That means Yosef spoke to Paro in a very respectful fashion. How did he learn that? He was taught that. When he walked back from Paro, he didn't turn around, he walked back. People prepare you. There was a famous story a few years ago. The president, Obama, and his wife were in Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen of England. And what did she do? She hugged the Queen of England. She saw Mrs. Obama, Michelle Obama, saw the Queen of England. She gave her a hug.
Nobody shouldn't.
The whole place went crazy. Wow. Didn't they tell you? You don't touch the Queen. You understand? Not even a woman, a man. You don't give a bear a hug to the Queen. The Queen is close to 90 years old. You don't give her a hug.
You don't even shake the hand.
You don't even, unless she extends her hand, you just stand. And they teach you this, before they go in. But whoever was in charge of protocol forgot to tell Mrs. Obama. So she sees the Queen, hey, gives her a bear hug.
What's up?
The English people went crazy. You touched the Queen, are you nuts? So here's Yosef. He's being brought from a prison cell, and he's going to be introduced to Paro. So who prepared him? How to talk, what is protocol, how do you stand, where do you go, how do you walk in, how do you walk out, how do you dress? Yaakov did. All of this Yosef was taught when he was 17 years old. So the Egyptians, they didn't care, Yosef cared. So when Paro saw this, that this kid from jail was newly groomed, haircut, clothing, educated, respectful, knew the rules. So he says, there's no one, he's the best. Paro was so impressed. This guy is royalty, which he was, because he was a descendant of Yaakov, from Yitzchak to Avraham and Sarah. It was royalty. But they say that they were not interested. It says, Rashi implies that the haircut and change of clothing was Yosef's idea. This was all Yosef. Yosef did this because he wanted, he was going to show respect to Paro. It was going to be, there was no question about it. He was going to do it right. And, and the dream, is so interesting because Yosef was trained that what time of year the world is judged for food? Pesach time. That's why we bring the Omer. But that's only the Jewish world. The non-Jewish world, you know when they're judged for their success, their economy and everything, is on Rosh Hashanah. And this was Rosh Hashanah time. And because the world is judged on Rosh Hashanah, the non-Jewish world, in the prayer, there's a special prayer called Nasana Tokev. That's a very moving prayer. And it says, Va'al ha-medinos boye omer. And on the other parts of the world, it is said, Ezel ha-ra ve'ezel ha-sova. Which countries will be in hunger, and which countries will have food? So, Egypt. Because Egypt's Paro's dream was on Rosh Hashanah, and Yosef went out of jail on Rosh Hashanah, we add that line in the Nasana Tokev. And you should just know that while the Jewish world is judged for food on Pesach, the non-Jewish world, the rest of the world, the economies of the world are decided on Rosh Hashanah. And that's why Paro had his dream on Rosh Hashanah, and that's why it was important that Yosef catch that and divide it up. Now, Rav Zev Lepp, he has an interesting insight over here. If you go through the Parshios, it seems that it goes over a bunch of weeks. I mean, it's like a series. It's almost like a soap opera, a drama. Parshas Vayeshev, we go through the whole thing, and he sold down to Egypt. Okay? Then they have the dreams, end of the thing. Then we wait a whole week till Miketz, Yosef gets out of jail, and he orchestrates things, and then the cup is found in Binyamin's bag. Break. Then next week, Vayigash, Yehuda comes and argues for Yosef. So instead of having it done in one story, 1 week, it's stretched out over 3 or 4 weeks.
3 or 4 parashiot?
3 or 4 parshiot. So Rav Zev Lev says a very important insight. He says, in life, people are confronted with challenges. And sometimes the best advice you can give the person is, for now, let's not do anything. Let's wait a few days. Let's see what happens. Let the dust settle. When I deal a lot with people on Din Torahs, they come in, they're angry. I want to take this guy to Beis Din. I take the information down. I said, okay, you know what? But I'm going to wait a day or two. Think about it. You know, it's a Thursday. I'm not going to send them a letter on Friday. Let's touch base again on a Sunday, Monday. Very often, by Sunday, Monday, he's quieted down. He feels a little bit better. The guy reached out, and they resolve it all. And nobody has to get insulted by a letter. That didn't happen today. I had to send out a letter from someone that I told him to wait a week. He called me up and said, what's taking so long? I said, well, I just wanted to make sure you thought about it over. I've thought about it enough. Okay, so that was the end of that conversation. But Rav Lev said something he says, we learned from Yosef and the brothers that the whole story doesn't have to be decided in 1 week, or in 1 day, or in 1 hour. In life, the answer sometimes is wait and see. Sometimes things just fix themselves. They resolve themselves. And sometimes we don't know the best direction to go until things quiet down. People get emotional. When you get emotional, it's very, very bad to make decisions when things are emotional. Okay. Now, let's go a little bit further. It says, the Zohar Kodesh says something also very interesting. He says, what got Joseph in trouble from the beginning? What was it that Joseph had that got him in trouble? Dreams. Right? He had these dreams. He went to the brothers, told them the dreams, and they were jealous. So the Zohar notes that the dreams were at the root of Joseph's misfortunes. And what got him out of jail and put him to the top? Dreams. So he says, Hashem sometimes says, Yirmiyahu says, I will heal you with your own wounds. You know, sometimes, it was like the fiery snakes, in the Midbar. The snakes bit the people. So what did Moshe do? He put a snake on a stick. If you looked at the snake, it healed you. What do you mean it healed me? The snake was what bit me in the first place. Sometimes what brings you your greatest misfortune is what actually brings you your salvation. It's the refuah, the makkah, sometimes the same thing. So the Zohar Kodesh writes that Yosef's problem was his dreams, and his salvation was his dreams. Okay. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, he discusses this, and the Hanukkah is over, it just was over. We just finished it last night. The Gemara talks about what candles do we have in our lives. So we have a lot of different candles. Think about all the different candles we have. We have Shabbos candles. We have Hanukkah candles. We have a Ner Neshama. Sometimes when a person passes away, a Yortzai, we light a candle for the Neshama. But it's really Hanukkah and Shabbos are the main candles that we have. So then the Gemara says, what's the purpose of the Hanukkah candles? Presuming so to publicize the miracle of Hanukkah. What's the purpose of Shabbos candles? Do you know what the purpose of Shabbos candles was? Do you know why Shabbos candles were instituted? Go way back when? It was for Sholem Bayis. Because how can you sit at the table Friday night in the dark? Today we have electric lights. But back then they didn't have electric lights. So there was a mitzvah to light candles, so when you came home Friday night and you sat at the table for your Seudah, you had light. You could read, you could talk, in the olden days, people, when the sun went down, they went to sleep. And when the sun came up, they got up to work.
Or you could light a candle like in Shabbos now.
Right, so
That's
right, they had to light it from before.
Question. Is it for the Shabbos candle that we can't benefit from it? Or
No. See, the Shabbos candles were made to benefit from it. The Hanukkah candles are not.
But you cannot read on the Shabbos candles.
No,
Or
not
because
by
of the
yourself,
movie.
but if you have someone with you. But it's only a candle that is adjustable. So now, then the Gemara says, the Gemara on Shabbos, the Gemara asks, Omar Rava, he has a whole thing. What happens if a person doesn't have enough money for both Shabbos candles and Hanukkah candles? So he can only buy one. What should he buy?
Hanukkah.
Should he buy Hanukkah candles or Shabbat candles?
Shabbos.
So the Gemara says, Omar Rava, Pshitali, it's obvious to me that if I only have money for one, I buy Shabbos candles. Why? The whole purpose of Hanukkah candles is to glorify God's name. Well, if you have Shabbat candles, therefore you have Sholem Bayit, God is there, that glorifies His name the most. So, believe it or not, Shabbos candles trump Hanukkah candles. As important as Hanukkah is, and you could argue that, well, let me put Hanukkah candles, it's also light, I can kill two birds with one stone. But the answer is no. Shabbos candles beats Hanukkah candles. So if you only have money for one, and you can't afford both, the halacha is Shabbos candles come first. Okay. Some other bits of information, very interesting information. Listen to this. We talked about last week the Beis Yosef's question. The Beis Yosef's question is, why is the miracle 8 days? The miracle is only 7 days. So, he brings down from different people that the first Hanukkah, according to the calendar, but during the days of the Maccabees, the 25th day of Kislev, the first night of Hanukkah, fell out on a Shabbos. So when they lit the menorah on Friday night, they had to light it early like we do. So the oil was enough for 24 hours. But when we light candles for Shabbos, it has to be for 25 hours. So that's why it was a miracle. It was short, because it was a Friday night. That's the one answer that they give. The Bnei Yisachar says something a little bit, the Chassam Sofer says something very interesting. He says, they lit the menorah in the courtyard. It says, V'lichu neros b'chatzros kodshecha, in the courtyard. The menorah doesn't belong in the courtyard. The menorah was inside the Beis HaMikdash. What was it doing in the courtyard? He says the Beis HaMikdash had been destroyed. There was holes and breaches everywhere. And they had idols everywhere. So they took the menorah out and lit it in the courtyard. Now, when you light a fire in an outside situation, it consumes more oil than inside, because the wind blows and it burns harder. So he says there was enough oil for lighting the menorah when it was inside the Beis HaMikdash. When you cook it outside,
Less.
it was less. So therefore, the fact that it burnt the whole time was a miracle. The Rambam, listen what the Rambam writes. The Rambam in Hilchos Chanukah writes, in the second Beis HaMikdash, when the Greeks took over, they made laws against the Jewish people. They tried to destroy their religion. They would not allow them to be osek in Torah and mitzvahs. Then the Rambam writes, Uposhtu yodom, they extended their hands, b'memonam, against the Jewish money, ubnoseim, and their children. So everybody says, hold on here. I understand the Greeks tried to undermine your children and make them Greek and not Jewish and not religious. But where do we have that the Greeks took their money? The Rambam says, and the Greeks confiscated the Jewish money, the bank accounts, and therefore put the children at risk. What does money have to do with putting children at risk? So they explain on the Rambam, says the Rambam was brilliant. The Rambam says, to raise Jewish children, you know what you need more than anything else? You need money. Because you have to have schools and kollels and yeshivas. And you have to have butcher shops and bakeries. And you have to have grocery stores. That means you need what's called an infrastructure. He says the first thing the Greeks did was they confiscated all the money. No money for teachers. No money for teachers, schools closed. So now, the schools closed, the bakeries closed, the butcher shops closed, everything closed. So now, who's at risk? Not the old-timers, the children. So the Rambam writes that the Greeks, their focus was on the children. And in order to destroy the children, they destroyed the Jewish infrastructure, the community, kihila. They destroyed all that. How did they do that? They confiscated all the money and made it impossible for the community to survive and to function. And the Rambam wrote this 1,000 years ago. That's how insightful the Rambam was on everything that was happening during the Greeks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
We're getting there. Next week is already January.